The family in the walls. The Millers were the picture of suburban bliss. David, the father, was a well-liked high school history teacher. Sarah, the mother, worked from home as a graphic designer. Their son, Sam, was 8, a sweet boy obsessed with his insect collection. Their daughter, Chloe, was 14, a silhouette of teenage angst defined by ripped jeans and faded band t-shirts. Their new life began in a charming, albeit old, colonial house on Maple Street. A house they had inherited from a reclusive great-aunt no one really talked about. The previous owner's instructions had been sparse and eccentric, scribbled on a notepad left in a kitchen drawer. Most of it was nonsense about watering specific plants, but one rule was underlined twice. Never answer the landline after midnight. David had laughed it off. Probably just didn't want to be bothered by telemarketers in different time zones, he'd said, unplugging the clunky, beige phone. But Sarah, for reasons she couldn't explain, had plugged it back in a week later. For emergencies, she insisted. The first sign something was wrong wasn't the phone, but the photographs. In every family picture taken inside the house, a faint, smiling face would appear in the background, in a mirror or a dark doorway. It was never clear enough to be obvious, just a pale smudge that, once you saw it, you couldn't unsee. Then it happened. At 12:07 a.m., the landline rang, a shrill, jarring sound that tore through the silent house. David, stumbling out of bed, answered it. "Hello." A long pause, filled with static that seemed to breathe. Then, a small, distant voice whispered, "You hung up on me." David, chilled, slammed the phone down. The next night, it rang again. Sarah answered. "Hello? Who is this?" The same static. Then, the whisper, clearer now, and right in her ear. "You left me in the dark." She dropped the receiver. The atmosphere in the house thickened after that. The face in the photographs grew clearer, its smile a little wider. It was Sam who noticed the change in his favorite toy, an old, hand-carved music box shaped like a cicada that he had found in the attic. After the calls, it began to play on its own in the middle of the night, the melody slower, distorted. One night, Sarah found it on Sam's pillow, silently whirring, its lid open and pointed directly at his face. Then, they noticed the basement door. The heavy, painted-over thing had always been warped, but now the top corner was worn smooth, as if something had been squeezing through the gap. The doorknob was always faintly warm, and sometimes, if you pressed your ear to the wood, you could hear a faint, rhythmic scraping from the other side, like fingernails slowly dragging down the steps. The horror then took a more intimate turn. The silence became a held breath, and the feeling of being watched was a constant, suffocating pressure, especially for Chloe. In her room, desperate for normalcy, she began to change out of her school clothes. One sock was off when a faint creak from above froze her. Her eyes snapped to the ornate vent cover in the ceiling. Through the metal scrollwork, a single, unblinking eye stared down. She scrambled away, her skin crawling with the violation. The final, most personal violation began with Sam. His voice became flat and monotone. A placid, empty smile would stretch across his face, his features, but the expression a poorly fitted mask. The entity was trying him on. It was learning to wear their son. Desperate, David and Sarah tested him. "Do you remember the lightning bug jar?" David asked, referring to a night 2 summers ago, when Sam had set the insects free out of empathy. The thing wearing Sam looked up, its smile widening. "The lights were pretty," it said hollowly. "I put them in the jar. Then I went to sleep." It had the memory, but not the soul. Then, it tilted its head and whispered in a perfect mimicry of David's own voice. "You left them in the dark, too." That was the final proof. Their son was gone, worn by something that watched from the shadows. Driven by a father's furious resolve, David descended into the basement. The air was warm and thick, smelling of wet soil and spoiled honey. His flashlight beam landed on the far wall, and his blood ran cold. The entire wall was a tapestry of faces, dozens of them, pressed into the mortar, pale and waxen, their mouths open in silent screams. They were all the smudged, smiling face from the photographs. In the center, one face shifted, its features restructuring until it was Sam. Its milky eyes snapped open. She didn't want to be alone down here. It rasped, the voice of the phone calls. She needed a family. David understood. The great aunt, who had lost her entire family, had left behind a grief so profound it became an entity, collecting children to keep her company in the dark. The door upstairs slammed shut. The scratching was no longer on the stairs. It was in the walls, all around him. "Sarah," David roared. "The phone. Destroy the phone." On the other side, Sarah heard him. She and Chloe sprinted to the kitchen. As Sarah reached for the landline, it rang once, a single, deafening shriek. She didn't hesitate. She yanked the cord from the wall and hurled the phone to the floor. Chloe brought a cast iron skillet down upon it with a furious cry. The plastic exploded. Circuits sparked and died. In the basement, the world screamed. The light bulb flashed and exploded. The faces in the wall dissolved, melting like wax as the shrieks faded. The oppressive presence vanished, and the basement door swung open, cold and inert once more. David stumbled out into the light. A small whimper came from the living room. Sam was curled on the floor, shivering. The vacant look was gone from his eyes. "Mom? Dad? I had a bad dream," he whispered. A lady was crying. She said she was lonely. Sarah swept him into her arms, holding the real, warm weight of him. The house on Maple Street was silent once more. The Millers, their family horrifically tested but finally whole, stood together in the sudden quiet, the pieces of the shattered phone at their feet, a testament to the darkness they had faced and survived. But as the days passed, the silence felt different. It was no longer peaceful, but watchful. The profound loneliness that had festered in the walls for decades had been severed from its instrument, but it had not vanished. It had simply receded, a patient, wounded thing waiting in the dark. The connection was broken, but the emptiness remained.